What's up, internet? Brian Spillwell here with my 0304 Kawasaki 636, and today we are making a video on the clutch push rod and the clutch arm, which I was looking on YouTube. I had an issue with mine. This had actually dropped below the distance it was supposed to be in and ended up being 8 up, if you could see right there. And then it ended up eating up this piece, all because my clutch line actually snapped during a ride and lost adjustment and allowed it to come back and fall down a little bit, and that little top housing, you know, sticks in here and basically comes in and out when you're engaging the clutch. It's on a spring, and this would actually just started grabbing at the top of it, and it ended up, you know, eating through it. When I installed the initial first clutch line that I replaced, I had no clutch pull whatsoever, and I was looking all over, you know, the internet, what could this be? And a lot of people just seem to hop in here, replace the clutch, replace everything, not knowing what it is. So I kind of wanted to go through, you know, what actually happened, what caused this failure, and you know, what happened while I was riding, you know. When I ran into this issue initially, I was looking on YouTube. I couldn't find any videos explaining why there was no clutch engagement, because this was all not taken apart at first. Everything was still together. So I thought maybe the clutch was bad, you know, but it wasn't. So I reached out, you know, to good old Instagram, and one of my buddies, luckily 3-ball scrapes, he's a little bike guru, so he knew. He was like, yo, check your clutch arm, which is this. I actually, you know, just pulled it straight out and happened to see that little metal groove, and he was like, make sure there's not 2 holes, and I was like, oh, sure enough, there's 2. And I was seeing that this was all the way inside the casing, which it's supposed to have a little bit of clearance above it, but mine didn't have the spring. So we're gonna go ahead and get into that, and I'm gonna tell you guys what happened to mine. But first, we have to go pick up the new part. So while I pick up the part, I'm gonna explain what happened to this bike exactly. So we're back, and yeah, like I said, we're going to pick up this part now. Got the receipt in our pocket, and I'm basically just going to get into what exactly happened to my Kawi and what caused, you know, the push rod, the clutch arm, and all that to fail, basically, because it was all together, you know. They all connect, and you know, that connects to the clutch line, and that's what initially started the failure, was you know, a bad clutch line. It was it always felt a little weird, I mean, but it worked, it responded. But you know, I guess it was fraying inside, and that's another thing that just goes with, you know, buying a new bike, what I was talking about you know, in the previous videos with buying that bike used. Obviously a lot of these small things that are failing on my Kawi are because, you know, simply the bike was just left outside. Weathering, anything that's you know, rubber is gonna crack, even if it's a tarp over it. It gets really hot out here in California, so, you know, and those have oils inside the actual thing that end up drying out in the cable, so that could have caused the cable to fray. And when the cable frayed and stretched out, basically, it allowed the clutch arm to drop a little bit below the point to where it was supposed to be at, and then that's what initially ate the inside of the push rod that comes out of the clutch, the center of the clutch basket. Oh, that's a little sexual, but I mean, it comes out of that and grabs your clutch arm like this, but it does come out of a hole. It's spring loaded. I mean, clutch lever, I was out riding about last week. Yeah, it was about a week ago, maybe a few days. It was during the week, and I was going out, you know, just to go hit the stunt spot. Literally hopped off the freeway, was at the light, went to put it in first gear, and then I just heard this like crunch, and then I couldn't put it down, and I was like, oh crap. I look at the lever's just, you know, completely free motion. And when that happened, it allowed my clutch arm, because it gave it so much slack, it allowed the clutch arm to actually drop below the locking point to where it was on that connecting rod.
So it allowed it to drop a little bit like that, and it was still engaging, but it was grabbing a different part of the clutch arm that it's usually not supposed to. So it ended up setting a groove in there, you know, destroying the clutch arm and push rod, all because of the cable, all because simply the clutch cable snapped, you know. So that's why it's like, it's kind of imperative you always have to have your clutch adjusted just right, because little stuff like this can happen. And one of the main reasons this happened to my bike is because they do a mod on the 636s, I guess, to make the clutch pull a little bit easier. And in doing that, they take off the spring. They take off the spring that holds the clutch up arm a certain amount, because it's not supposed to go in. A lot of people I noticed online, when they're doing their videos and they're taking the bikes apart, even with the spring, the clutch arm is all the way compressed into the casing, and it's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to have, you know, maybe a little less than 1/4 of an inch above the casing. But like I said, when those cables aren't adjusted right, it gives them enough position to roll back and drop inside until the arms go all the way down and touch the bottom of your casing, which it's not supposed to do. So in my case, clutch cable snapped. It was modded, didn't have the spring to keep it up and retain it in that position. So dropped down, ate it. Now we're on our way to get that.
So we're back now. We got our special order push rod, and we actually already had one, luckily, from a buddy on Instagram, a fresh clutch arm. And let's go ahead and get into it. So what initially happened with mine, when the clutch cable snapped, I did not have that spring right there, and you see how there's that little bit of gap, you know, that it's out. So I didn't have that, right? It's supposed to sit like that, perfect, and that's why you can honestly see the wear marks where it's supposed to be. Now mine, like I said, I had the issue of the clutch line snapping, and I didn't have that spring to keep up the height, so it allowed mine, let's see, like a stunt mod, I guess. When my clutch line actually snapped, it lost tension, allowing this to drop down in here, and that's when the pull arm raised up and started grabbing farther up on the arm than it should. And when I got home, I didn't notice it was like that, and I thought it was supposed to be, but I noticed those scratches, those were never there before. So I knew there was an issue with that, you know, it wasn't supposed to be down that low. So once I looked in here, obviously freaking, I seen a little bit of wear marks down there from the initial one touching at the bottom, and you know, it was just all bad. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead, now that we have this part, we're gonna go ahead and set this up. And like I said, I'm only making this video because a lot of people, like I said, were going through their clutches, everything, and as you can see, mine, there's the usual little bit of clutch plate dust in there from the pads, but clutch is good. Everything else is straight. Like I said, it was just $12 part, literally, but you know, it all happened because this snap. And you know, that's why it's really you know, important that you guys have your clutch lines, you know, adjusted, you know, to spec, because this happens to a lot of bikes. It's not just this bike, you know. Like I said, I couldn't find specific videos. I've seen them on the ZX-10R, a few of the newer ZX-6Rs, but not the 636. So I'm gonna go ahead and set the camera up now, and then we're just gonna get back to, you know, replacing it. Like I said, all this is already taken apart. The casing is really easy. It's obviously, let's see, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 to 10 bolts, and to get this off, it's 4. You don't even need a compressor. You could just tap it with the hammer, but I have a compressor. We got those bolts all out, everything out. You're gonna drain the oil off first, obviously, then you're just gonna take off the casing. Very simple. The 4 clutch spring bolts, they're pretty long, they come off, you know, very simple. They're right here. We're gonna grab these bad boys, put them down here. Just gonna take that stuff off, and then you'll be able to take off your whole clutch basket, which is right here, and then this piece will be in there, like I said, with the spring retainer, which is over here. You got this little thing that goes on right behind it, but we're not using this one, so let's throw these two pieces. Let's go ahead and throw these pieces of trash away. Go ahead and hop into replacing this. Like I said, this job should only probably take you about 15-20 minutes with smoke breaks. I mean, it's really, like I said, relatively easy. And if you do happen to ever just go through this, take the casing off anyways, because on mine, when I opened it up, this little thing is kind of closed off, right? Your clutch basket face goes against that and everything, so all the metal shavings from this and that other arm were up in here. So, you know, make sure you get a paper towel, clean those off, and get all the shavings out of there before you go ahead and reinstall it. And you know, it's just another reason why you have to drain your oil, because you don't want all those metal fragments going into the motor and circulating through somewhere and you know, causing more damage. When, like I said, all this stuff was very cheap, 12 bucks. This in the line I got from somebody for free, you know, like I said earlier in the story. And basically, you're just gonna get your little spring, your little washer, get your new push rod, make sure it's, you know, the same. We're gonna actually probably lube this up with a little old oil right here. That's this part out of the way. Don't need that anymore. And one thing you do want to do, what I actually did was, if you have the measurement tool, which I already measured it, you could check your clearance for wear, but I didn't see any scoring or any much clutch dust, which you will see a little bit of dust in here. It should be very, very minimal. You don't want to see this all coated like gray, because that means your clutch is probably worn, and as you can see, mine are fresh. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this baby back on. Boom. Like that. Like I said, very, very simple job, not complicated at all. I'm gonna go ahead and just start the, I like to just start everything by hand, you know, when you rethread anything, just because you don't want to jump right into something with an impact wrench and just start and freaking just destroy something. Because on an old bike like this too, when I was taking off the casing, I actually had to re-tap these bolts and rethread them, because the meatball, whoever put the casing on before, just tore them up. Luckily it was only two that were kind of bad, but it's taken care of. Like I said, it's an old bike, gotta be fragile with it. So like I said, we're gonna give them a couple turns each before we hop up in here. And these things are extremely, extremely long. Oh man, that new push rod's a lot thicker. And if you guys are actually looking for this part, it's just called the rod, the Kawasaki rod. That, like, I can't make this up. It was like one of the hardest parts for them to look up. But as you can see, rod. Even when I picked it up, the lady was like, "Oh, I'll get your rod for you." Okay, so we had to run it back, obviously. Got to put your red thread lock on the clutch spring bolts, and then torqued them down. So obviously I pulled them back out, put this stuff on every bolt, torqued them back down. We're gonna put the casing on, but we're not gonna fill it with oil. I'm just gonna let these the torque thread stuff seal overnight, and then I'm gonna fill it up with oil in the morning. So this is just gonna be really quick, self-explanatory. We're just simply putting the, you know, casing back on. Gonna mount all the bolts up and then attach this, and then we'll fill with oil tomorrow morning. So we'll continue from there, and you know, this is just where we're gonna end it for tonight. But this is where we're at. Everything's torqued down. I know I said I was gonna stop earlier, but put this on there, got the adjustment where I wanted. You see the little gap, because like I said, I'm running the little mod. I guess this makes it a lot easier, but this is where it actually latches in. You never want to see it flushed out right here. That's something you don't want. So we got it all in. Like I said, thread locker is going to be drying, so I'm not going to put no oil in right now, but this is all set up, good to go. Oh, so buttery compared to when I first got it. I mean, the cable was trash, a lot of stuff. Like I said, it was sitting out for a while, so basically that's pretty much it. Okay, so from this point on, all we got to do is let the thread locker seal, and we're completely done at this point. It's set up. Like I said, we got our gap, we got everything torqued in. We're not going to fill it with oil until maybe this time tomorrow. The threads really shouldn't be touched on the clutch spring bolts, but you know, just to be safe, it's what I do when you put that thread locker on. And tomorrow all we do is fill it up with 3.6 liters of oil, you know, a little bit of that Lucas stabilizer, and clutch problem is all fixed, as you can see. Oh, like butter. So if you guys are having problems with like I said, you're shifting, something doesn't feel right, go ahead and check your clutch rod, as you can see, and check your clutch arm. That's not OEM, that's second mark.